Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to our Electrical Apprentice Safety Forum. Thanks again for joining us today, both in person and online. My name is Chris Bombolis. I'm the MC for today. For those who don't know me, yes, I'm a snowy-haired old fella, but my background is I was in the media for quite some time, and I joined the Office of Industrial Relations a number of years back and was there for 7 years, working alongside the Electrical Safety Office and Workplace Health and Safety as the media manager. I am now sort of retired and help out in events like this, so it's a pleasure to be here and rekindle my association with the Electrical Safety Office. Can I officially begin today's proceedings by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which this event is taking place and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I would like to extend this acknowledgement to the traditional owners of where our online guests are joining us today. A little bit of housekeeping for our online attendees. If you have any questions of our speakers, please type them in the chat box to the right of your screen, and we will ask those questions during the panel session at the end of our speakers. For our in-room attendees, put your hand up and one of our staff will bring the microphone to you. It's important you wait to ask your question till we get the microphone so that those online can hear that question loud and clear as well. If you have any technical problems during the live stream back at home or at work, please make sure the sound on your computer is turned on. Refresh your browser, and if that doesn't work, don't hesitate to contact us via the Q&A chat box or email the events team at events@oir.qld.gov.au. You can also change the size of your screen to full screen by selecting the 4 small arrows next to the volume bar at the bottom of your screen. As I said earlier, welcome to the Electrical Apprentice Safety Forum as part of Electrical Safety Fortnight 2024. Each year, the Electrical Safety Office runs these events to help raise awareness of working and living safely around electricity. In Queensland, we have 64,029 licensed electrical workers, 13,046 electrical contractors and over 10,000 electrical apprentices in the state. So we want to make sure that every one of you goes home safely at the end of each and every workday. We are here live today from TAFE Queensland at Acacia Ridge, and I'd like to extend on behalf of the ESO our thanks to TAFE Queensland for hosting us here this morning. Many of you are also joining us online this morning from across the country and right throughout Queensland, and this is really exciting and we appreciate your attendance. Time now to get into the first of our speakers, and our first speaker today is the Commissioner for Electrical Safety, Keith McKenzie. Keith started his electrical career in 1986. After gaining his electrical fitter and mechanics licence, he worked for a number of companies on domestic, commercial, hospital, petrochemical and industrial projects. He has served on a range of boards and committees in the area of apprentice training, construction, training competencies, workplace health and safety and Australian standards, and has been a member of the Electrical Safety Board and Electrical Licensing Committee since 2011. Prior to his role as Commissioner, Keith was the President of the Queensland and Northern Territory Electrical Trades Union branches. Today, Keith will talk us through the new Safety Working and Supervision Guide for Electrical Apprentices. Please welcome Keith.
Morning everyone, and thanks for everyone for being here and those joining us online today. So let's get into it. So people hopefully watching this today or as a recording later on, we'll have electrical apprentices here, the trades, but also have the person supervising the electrical apprentice, the supervising tradesperson. And at some point, you've either got this licence or some point you're going to earn this licence. And when you get this licence, you're an electrician for life. But you can't work without this licence. This allows us to undertake our work and undertake our work safely. Now, I'm a licensed electrical fitter mechanic. I'm the second best electrician in Queensland, according to me, and no one's disputed that, so I've still got that record. So with the supervision of apprentices, and setting the apprentices up for success, so whether you're a first-year apprentice straight out of school or a first-year adult apprentice or even a fourth-year apprentice, it's a great journey. When you complete your apprenticeship, then you really start to learn. You've got to make some decisions. And when things go wrong in our world, the electrical area, things can go pretty bad. We've had a number of electricians who've only had one shock and they're not with us today. Your first shock could certainly be your last shock. So it's setting up the apprentices and the supervising tradesperson up for success. And to do that, it's making sure that the apprentice has the appropriate instruction and mentoring, making sure that the apprentice and the supervisor connect, how we support those people. It's making sure that you understand as a supervising tradesperson the work that you're doing, so you actually provide that right advice and guidance to the apprentice. So what we looked at on the electrical safety board and the committees and some focus groups, how can we set up the apprentice for success and also the supervising tradesperson? And to do that is we've developed this booklet called the Safe Working and Supervision Guide for Electrical Apprentices. There's a few copies here today. Someone's already grabbed some of them. It's also going to be online for you guys to read. Now, you might have a really great employer where they might have a guide, what's expected for you. And we've also got employers, whether it be a small contractor that hasn't had the time to do it. Well, you know what? Here's a book to get you started. And this hopefully will set you up in your journey to be a great electrician or electrical worker at the completion of it. So let's get into what it may look like. So the Safe Working Guide is really to ensure what is the best practice. And this is an evolving guide as new technology changes and as we evolve with what we need to know, because some people here might be in the housing industry, petrochemical, working for government, working for the supply authorities. Everyone does different tasks, but the fundamental principles of electrical installation work is the same. We've got to make sure this book is fluid and continue to be out there for you to be modified and adapted as we need to as things change and how we do stuff. And it's important that your supervisor also needs to have a look at this booklet. So they need to make sure they're teaching you and training you the same way. So in this booklet, and I'd like to thank Veronica Murray, who's sitting down the front here, and she'll be one of the guest speakers later, has put a lot of time and effort into the development of this book. It's all having a great number of people in the industry and did a lot of consultation in the industry putting this guide together and getting those great ideas. But thanks, Veronica, for all your work to collate it and make it as what it is today. So I'm not going to go through it fully, but there's a number of sections. So part one is really about the safe practices of what needs to be undertaken of the book. Now, when you look at a book like this, normally about safe working practices for apprentices or anyone, usually at the end of the book, you go through what's it like about health and safety and all that nice stuff. But I tell you, if an apprentice is going to read 10 pages in this book, and there's not many, at least read the first 10. Will you do that for me? Because that's what's important. That's what hopefully will get you home at the end of the day. It's great to go to work, but it's even better to come home. And the licensing committee since 2021 to 24, we looked at some figures. There's been 32 electrical workers and contractors that faced the electrical licensing committee where an apprentice has received an electric shock. And lucky out of those, there was no fatalities in that lot, but there could have been. And as an apprentice, you won't come to the licensing committee, your tradesperson will, because they're responsible for you. All right? So it's making sure that while you need to work safely, the coverage and their supervision is up to them. Part two will cover about health and safety responsibilities at work, go through what you need to do as far as your requirements. Part three about electrical risk and management. And there's a lot of stuff in here, but there's a lot of pictures because apprentices love pictures. Part four will cover the supervision of apprentices and effective supervision. So this is where the tradies need to look at that, making sure they understand what you need to know. And it's great to go to college here at TAFE Queensland or an RTO, anywhere you go. But you're only in the college world for 10% of your trade. Most of the training and your learning is actually on the job with your fellow tradespeople. Part five will talk about incident accidents, why you need to report. There's not reports so you dob yourself in it and put you in a situation where if something's gone wrong, how can we change and make sure no one else is in that same position? And these are requirements for reporting under legislation. And the last part is the Appendix 1, which is the guide for apprentices. So the supervising tradesperson is, we've got a few tradies in the room, and thanks for coming along and bringing your apprentices here and those watching online. But when we nurture an apprentice, it's about the skills, knowledge, attributes and behaviours of someone to teach. Now, if you remember back at school, we were back at school last year or back at school 10, 15, 20 years ago, the teachers that you like and had a good rapport, you hopefully did well at. And the teachers that weren't that flash or you didn't connect with, you maybe weren't that good. It's the same with the tradesperson. If you don't connect with your tradesperson, you might be stuck with that tradesperson for 4 years, depending on your organisation. You want to get along with them, well, it's going to be a long bloody 4 years, I'll give you the tip. But you might be in a big job site or an organisation when you get rotated around. So that tradesperson could be might be treated you as a brother, a sister, a mother, a father. Not only in the car talking about work stuff, you're talking about boyfriend issues, girlfriend issues, where you've been surfing, where you've been drinking, all these issues you have, where you've been kicked out of home. So you actually got to mentor that apprentice. So that's what we need a good supervising tradesperson needs to look like. So the Queensland, the focus group, we're looking at providing some training for apprentices. We said, right, we need to do something for the electrical apprentice. But October last year, TAFE Queensland dropped this course. It's called Mentoring an Apprentice or Trainee. Now, this is for any apprentice. So whether you're mentoring a apprentice hairdresser, apprentice boilermaker, electrician, we recommend all tradies do this course. And if you come to the licensing committee as a tradesperson, with apprentices be involved, I'll give you the tip, you're going to do it. And if you're in the room or you're online, scan this QR code, that'll take you to the TAFE course. This is a free course by TAFE. They don't do too many free TAFE courses, but the ones they do are bloody good, I'll give you the tip. Scan that QR code and that'll take you to what's involved to have the skills about supervising an apprentice. It's got nothing to do about electrical, but it gives you some fundamental activities. And this is free, takes you about 45 minutes, and it's good. And even as an apprentice, you can do it too, because then you can ask your tradie, hey, have you done this course? It's about setting the apprentice up for success. As I said before, it's a privilege to train an apprentice, and this is where workers are from the licensing committee, and these are where a few things have gone bad, where failure to de-energise when an apprentice received an electric shock, failure to lock out and tag out, or tagged out the wrong piece of equipment. Apprentice received an electric shock. So the worker, we've got to re-educate their work on the safe systems of work, and hopefully they'll come back. Lucky these apprentices, these shocks weren't fatal. We've had quite a few apprentices receive only one shock. And fail to supervise on site. So if as a tradesperson, you go to the van and get some stuff out of the van, and the apprentices are really keen, you want to quickly go and disconnect the lights, because if you don't be locked out or isolated and tagged out and you receive a shock, yeah, you should have known better, but it's also the duty of the tradesperson. Also the duty of you, by supervision of that tradesperson, to teach you how to lock out and tag out in the first instance. So it's about, once again, preparing you. The next one, this young apprentice thought he'd make a few bucks on the weekend and started doing his own electrical contracting work. He got fined $45,000 by the magistrate. If you haven't got an electrical licence, you can't do electrical work for any other people other than your immediate family. You can't put a PowerPoint in for your mate or a fan in for your friends. If you need extra money, mow lawns, unless you've got electrical contractor's licence. All right? And apprentices can't even do it for any friends or anyone, A, because you haven't got a work licence, and B, you haven't got a contractor's licence. So whilst this apprentice shouldn't have been doing it anyway, you didn't have a licence or a contractor's licence, you're going to take a lot of money and a lot of earnings, and probably the next 4 years to probably pay that fine off. So if you're a worker with a work licence and haven't got a contractor's licence, you can't do that work. Is that clear? So no more friends, work for cashies, none of that stuff. Because what happens is, if you were going to do work for a friend and that friend's house burns down and they go, it's all right, I've got insurance, and find that someone did the work and you didn't have a contractor's licence, I don't reckon that insurance will be coming after you, so you'd be paying their house off too, and that's a pretty expensive PowerPoint for a carton of beer or whatever you might have charged them. So I just want to make sure we get that message through, because a lot of people think just because I'm an electrician I can do it. You cannot. A couple of take-home messages. We want to make sure, are you competent? So when you finish your apprenticeship and you get that licence and you do your capstone, and congratulations, and make sure you study hard, that's the start of your trade. And the capstone is a bit of a free tip for you. Does people know why they call it the capstone test? Anyone know? Show of hands, anyone know? Yeah, sweet, right. I don't know why, but when you build a pyramid, the last stone you put on a pyramid is the capstone. So the foundations, when you start your first day of your apprenticeship, that's the foundations, and at the very end, you put the capstone on the pyramid, and that's why they call it the capstone test, the last test we go out there. Bit of a relationship with the Egyptians, I'm not sure why, but that's why we call it the capstone test. But that's the cap on that one pyramid, and that's why we do it. Then we start our journey being a tradesperson, and we go on for a whole range of stuff. But when we get our licence, we want to make sure we're competent, whether it be every 6 months, a year, 2 years, do your competency, making sure your employer puts you through additional training and verification. And there's heaps of courses you can do with RTOs and TAFE Queensland to make sure you're competent. But that licence just allows you to do the electrical work. It's up to you and your employer to make sure you're competent. Apprentices, make sure you're effectively supervised. If you've got a tradesperson not giving you information, or you think they're a bit of a dud, ask for another tradesperson or ask some questions, you know. You've got 3.5 years to learn the trade, and then the next 6 months you're really setting yourself up for anything you don't need to know, you need to know, ready to come out of your time. And as a tradesperson providing adequate supervision, are you competent to teach that apprentice? And if you don't like teaching apprentices for whatever reason, you just don't like apprentices, or you're grumpy, or for whatever reasons, put your hand up and say, I don't want to teach an apprentice. We want to make sure that the person who's training that apprentice is keen and want to teach them this great trade in the electrical industry. Because if something happens, and no disrespect to painters, right? If paint flakes off a wall, nothing's going to happen. It falls on the floor. But you leave a power point disconnected with potential not to someone who receives a shock or may get a shock, your licence is at risk. You picking up what I'm saying? It's a high-risk game. Don't undertake electrical licensing work. And the other point I want for the apprentices, we provide this document I do. It's called a Commissioner's Communique. It goes out to every licence holder in Queensland. We do 2 a year. Make sure you read it. I don't write it for nothing. This is also going now to all apprentices. Any apprentices get that in the mail or an email recently? Yeah. A couple didn't. Did you read it? Hope you did. So I'm going to make sure that you get that while you're not a licence holder, but you're going to be soon, and it's important to see what requirements are coming up. Thanks for your time today. Make sure you stay safe and be proud. Thank you.
Our thanks to Keith and for reinforcing the messages of the relationship between tradie and apprenticeship. Apprentice is very important, particularly for the tradie to set up the apprentice for success. And of course, I think he said it several times, and he underlined it, put it in parenthesis, no friend cashies as an apprentice. So we're just going to reinforce that message. For those who are joining us online, if you are submitting a question, you have one for Keith in particular, get it up online in the chat box, and we'll get to that during the Q&A session. Time now to welcome our next couple of speakers, Jane Darling and Mark Pocock from the Electrical Safety Office. They're going to talk to us about effective isolation, preventing shock and arc flash. Before joining the Electrical Safety Office as a Senior Electrical Safety Inspector, Jane worked as a sparky and has been in the construction industry for nearly 30 years. Jane has been with the ESO for over 5 years now and continues to be a powerhouse in her industry. She's also a strong advocate for young women in the electrical trade. Mark is a lead inspector in the compliance team at the Electrical Safety Office. He's passionate subject matter expert when it comes to electrical risk management, having worked in domestic, commercial and industrial electrical industry sectors. Mark began his trade journey in 1989, starting with entry-level pre-vocational trade training and progressing through each level of the electrical industry. Bit like yourselves, apprentice, electrical worker, electrical supervisor, and now an electrical inspector for the last 7 years. Through his involvement in community sport and taking on leadership roles, Mark's experience provides a thorough perspective on workplace and team culture and risk management strategies that can not only help individuals but help businesses achieve greater success. To guide us through the next 15 minutes, I'm saying that because Mark has a tendency to go a little longer than he should. Please welcome Jane and Mark.
Thank you very much, Chris. You've done it again. You love pinching my first part of my my first slide. I want to provide a few insights, and Jane does as well today, that will hopefully achieve a shift in our individual behaviours and tendencies that we can have on jobs. The first one, straight away, I'll bounce off of Keith here when he mentioned unlicensed work. So last year, in this exact talk, an apprentice heard exactly what Keith said. He had a profile on Airtasker and was doing jobs on Airtasker. After this talk, he stopped doing that. A month later, I was part of the compliance unit and we were doing auditing on those Airtasker platforms, and I identified unlicensed work that had been occurring. So we had that, him and I had that conversation. So yeah, it just hammers that point home that the ESO, we are doing those audits. So that's probably one of my first insights that I can provide. Question we would like to ask today, Jane.
So the question that we would like to ask today is that we'd like you to write down a question that you have for us. Write it down. If we don't get to answer it during the presentation, come and talk to us later, because we would really love to hear what questions you have for us. Might not be about arc flash, might be about being an apprentice in the industry, might be about what roles and functions the ESO have as the regulator in the industry, but just come and see us. Write it down if you can.
Is this or not? It is. I'll just come out the front here. Everyone see the picture that we've got here? A lot of energy. We got those, that's 3 bus bars that have been vaporised, and they punched a hole probably the size of 3 fists through the top of a switchboard. Also punched a hole through the bottom of a switchboard. About 25,000 amps fault current there, and that was in March this year, and it was just removing an escutcheon panel. So the person wasn't doing any work at all, they just removed an escutcheon panel to check behind. So I like to have that one up there just as a bit of a eye-opener for what we're talking about today with regards to providing you with an insight as to why this stuff that we're talking about is important. So who are we in the Electrical Safety Office? Our role as Queensland's electrical safety regulator is to improve electrical safety through education processes like this. And we're just trying to reduce the risk of death, destruction and injury that can occur in association with electricity. We do this at work, we do this at home, and we also do this in the community. So we have a pretty big role where we have to get out, we have to speak with you guys. We'd much rather have these conversations than actually have to go and deal with an incident, even though we actually do deal with an incident.
So just about a little bit about the Electrical Safety Office and where we fit. So we're underneath the Office of Industrial Relations, and you can see Electrical Safety Office. There are several areas, key areas within the Electrical Safety Office. So for example, field services. Mark and I are both in field services. What that means is that we come out into the field and it's a very proactive and reactive work. So sometimes we're coming out to have a look at an incident that's happened. Other times we're just coming out more on an education side to come and talk to apprentices, contractors, whoever it might be, who would like information. There's also supply and networks, electrical safety equipment, which deals directly with, we might have pieces of equipment that are in the field that we're finding that over and over again they're coming up with faults on them. So we have an equipment team. There's electrical licensing, which you will know about, governance, legal and compliance. So what do we do as electrical safety inspectors? Just a little bit about this slide first. So we will get called to anything that has an electrical component. So this one here, you can see the inspector in the foreground there. There's been a tree lopper and he's just been cutting down some trees, unaware that there are power lines nearby, and the power lines have come down as he's cut that tree. It's 11 kV, I think, wasn't it, Mark?
Yeah, 11 kV dropped onto the low voltage lines and potentially destroyed all the electronics in that street. We went out there just to have a look at the incident, but I know the entities were out there for a long time after us, I think maybe 24 hours, doing ACO checks on each switchboard, and there were electricians out there for, I reckon, a week afterwards.
Yep.
So we want to focus on a case study today, which will hopefully then get everyone in that right mindset. Looking at this picture, everyone had a good close look. There was an arc flash incident that happened in this picture. What's everyone's thoughts on where do you think that happened? We're going to run around and see if anyone can. We've got a switchboard, mains box, solar connection.
Anybody? Have a guess?
Hands up. Anyone who thinks they know? Guess. Would everyone think switchboard? Everyone's quiet. I'm going to get everyone talking here.
On the switchboard. Right.
We've got one. Found one.
Switchboard, we got one. Oh, hey, hello, another one. I'm going to make this interactive if I...
Is it on that light there? The brown spot underneath it?
On the light. Oh, I like that. You got anyone, Jane?
Anybody? What about any target?
Oh, hang on, I've got another one.
The orange switchboard.
Orange switchboard, twice on the orange switchboard. So this was in April 22. I wanted to try and keep this pretty relevant, so it's not too old. It was a security company. They were installing some equipment at a sports complex in Brisbane. The technician had been working at the site for approximately 2 weeks, doing works. At the end of April, they commenced work on this western side of the building, which is the side that I showed everyone, and they had to run a cable underneath the building. The technicians then made a decision that he wasn't going to install the cable under the building, and he had to come up with an alternate cable path. So essentially he's contacted a sales staff member who was involved in the quoting process, who's come out, they've had a discussion, and they've decided to put the cable under this counterlever. So you can see it's about 200 mil, it's about 300 mil, 350 off the ground, and it's going to be concealed, screwed up into that counterlevered bottom plate. Now, the decision was half saddles, self-drilling screws, going up. Mains come down the front wall, loop up, and run on top of the counterlever. So the plan was for the electrician who was there with an apprentice to lay on his back, right hand on the trigger finger of the drill, left hand on the back end, pushing the screws up with your head underneath the cantilever. We've all been in a situation where we've done that. So the first saddle went in, no problems. Second saddle goes in. And immediately initiates an arc flash when it goes into the active. What's everyone's thoughts on essentially how something like that can happen. Like the big why. Why do you think something like that? What's the main cause of why that happened?
Negligence.
On whose part?
Just inability to sort of look around the situation, see where the cables were coming from and everything. So
That's a good one. Anyone else? Flick to the next one, Jane. So when we explored, this is the pictures there after it was repaired, so that's what it looked like inside. When you look at it just purely on the surface of it, so supervision level, we've got, as soon as that plan's been altered, so it was to go under the house, as soon as you've altered that plan, you've then had to risk manage that process. So looking at that whole risk management process and the competency of everyone involved to basically exactly what you said before, which was identify, just pause and have a look around. That location of the services was obviously not considered, and it was a bit of a repetitive task. You'd been there 2 weeks, you get quite comfortable with the site, so you're just rolling through it. If you look a little bit more comprehensive, so the worker had issues with his management on that job. So multiple times I think he'd altered the plan, and the management had said to him, "I'm done, you need to just get this done." So that then causes an issue where you don't want to bring up your employer, you don't want to mention something again. Don't want to cause a wave. I'll go bring them all up. So the worker had actually accepted another job, but he hadn't told his employer yet, so he was really checked out of that place. He was ready to move on. He had a decision regarding access under the building where he said he couldn't get under the building, whereas I could get under there and I could crawl up to that area up the opposite end in about 30 seconds. And the information about the counterlever, he said you couldn't see inside the wall. But as you can see from the photos, you can see pretty easily it took about 20 seconds. Even if that wall was sealed and you couldn't see in it, what's another way you could check for services?
the switchboard legend.
Yeah. The sheets.
Over here, Mark.
The sheets. You can open those sheets up. It took a second. That's how they fixed it. They could just unscrew the sheets. Didn't take long at all. Now our time's running out. Jane?
It's not me. I've hardly done any talking, Mark.
This one.
So Mark's already touched on a couple of these, and it's about common contributing factors. The first one says communication. So in most instances there'll be more than one person involved in the job. So it'll be multiple points of communication. Somebody will say, oh, just go run that over there and do that. You'll go and do that. You might grab your mate and say, hey, we're just going to run this over here and do that. So it's multiple people and an assumption about what might have to happen in the task. And I forgot there was a slide up there. There's a nice picture. So obviously this is up in a ceiling space, and there's a lot happening in this picture here. I'm not sure if you can see it, but right down here is some cables, unterminated cables.
So this was an incident that a third year, right before Christmas a couple of years ago, went within a whisker of being killed on something as simple as a ducted aircon install and connecting the interconnects.
So there's two people up there working, and they've been working on that all day, and then a third person comes onto site, and I think it was the apprentice had been tasked with doing the interconnects, and the electrical contractor came on site to do the hookup.
On the outside had connected the outdoor unit, then he connected the switchboard. And so it's that late in the afternoon, everyone's trying to get home, everyone's trying to get it done, we need a hand, can you come? Yep, I'll connect the outdoor connector switchboard upstairs and the roof aren't yet finished. And we have that miscommunication where someone doesn't tell the other one that they aren't finished in the roof. One downstairs assumes they are finished in the roof, it gets energised, and we've got a person being just about killed.
And then we've got competency so those time pressures, competency to perform the task. So somebody might ask you as an apprentice to go and do something. You may not have even performed that task before. And at that point you have to stop and say, actually, I'm not able to do this, I'm not competent to do this, and you need to go back and tell the person who is responsible that this is not a task that you're able to perform. It might be a repetitive task, you might do it all the time. And some people, they get overly confident, they do the same task over and over again. And I just wanted to ask a question. So it's Friday afternoon, you've been given a task to do, and what are you thinking about on Friday afternoon?
Going home.
What are you thinking about?
Having a beer at the pub.
What are you thinking about Friday afternoon?
Nothing.
Nothing. So these are nothing special. These are all things that we do. It's Friday. We want to get out of there. So we're just trying to get the job done. So we just need to stop, think, finish the job safely so we can go home on Friday afternoon.
This is all good. We're just finished. We're sorry we've gone over everyone, but I think we're hitting some pretty good points. The biggest one is to pause and stop. Feels good?
You haven't got enough time
It's very dramatic.
It was dramatic, but it's that pause. We're doing something, there's been a change in the plan, someone new comes onto site, let's pause, let's think about electrical safety. Always confirm your isolation and install your own lockout device. That's a really big one. We see incidents involved with this where someone has just not installed their own lockout device and something's been re-energised. Avoiding false confidence. So we don't want to be in a situation where I had an apprentice that was just, he loved doing energised work and you just had to stop him forever. You had to have such an eye on him and he was just an adrenaline junkie. Never assume, always test before you touch. And if you don't feel safe, trust that feeling. Sorry, Chris.
No, that's all right. I'd like to keep going on, but while you've got the microphone, Jace just wanted to know he's online, and we thank everybody who's joined us that's online as well as our audience here. Jace wanted to know, why wasn't it isolated in that incident that you discussed, the arc flash?
The installation itself?
Yeah.
Again, that's just that risk management process. So
Yep.
someone hasn't identified that the cables are even there. If they don't know the cable's there, what are they isolating for?
Okay, thank you. Round of applause for Mark and Jane. Thank you very much. And again, if you've got questions you'd like to ask of Mark or Jane or both, use the chat box for those who've joined online. For those in the audience here, store them and we'll get back to the guys during the panel session. Time now to change a bit of tact, talk about mentally healthy workplaces. And I'd like to introduce Nick Thompson, the CEO of Mates in Construction. Nick joined Mates in 2019, working with the building and construction industry to operationalise the blueprint for better mental health and suicide prevention in the building and construction industry. With a postgraduate qualification in social work, men's behaviour change and mental health, trauma and recovery, Nick brings over 15 years' experience in the not-for-profit sector, both in leadership and direct practice roles, from working with First Nations communities in the Northern Territory to managing domestic and family violence programs for Relationships Australia Queensland. Nick brings significant leadership experience from his time as the Chief Executive Officer of the Aboriginal Family Legal Service, Southern Queensland. As the son of an electrician, so he's got a connection to this industry, Nick is passionate about making sure that the worker's voice and the evidence knowledge of blue-collar workers and their experience of workplace mental health is a strong part of the Mates program logic. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nick Thompson.
Thank you. That was a pretty long introduction. I should have given you my tradie version. That was my government version, but next time. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Before I start today, I'd just like to acknowledge the First People of the land on which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. When mates first went up to the Northern Territory, we've been in Queensland for a while, but we went up there. We actually sat down with some of the local First Nations people up there, and they really liked the work that we did. And they said, we want to gift you something because we like your mission and we like your values. So they gifted us this piece of artwork, which is about living longer and living stronger, which is what Mate's mission and vision is all about. It's about making sure, like Keith was saying before, people go home safe, and not just physically safe, but mentally safe as well. You stole a bit of my thunder. I am the son of an electrician. I wouldn't know how to turn on a light switch, but my dad always did that for me. He got a scholarship when he was 14. He lived in a little country town called Texas on the New South Wales-Queensland border, and he got a scholarship to come to Brisbane to become an electrician, and he worked for 52 years for Telstra as an electrician. And it's a fantastic career that supported myself and my family to be able to go on and do other things as well. So that's my, I guess, connection to the industry and why I'm here today. But I wanted to talk just a little bit about the Mates in Construction program and how we might be able to help people on site if they're struggling. Does anyone know much about Mates in Construction? Do we have anyone that's gone through any of the levels of training here today? Yep, fantastic. Do we have any connectors in the room? Awesome. So I've got a couple of connectors. Just wanted to touch on that really quickly. Today I'm going to talk about suicide. Sometimes some of our peers might die by suicide, and we might have thoughts of suicide ourselves. So if anything I touch on today has an impact, or if it's just not your day, you feel you've had a rough morning, you've got a lot going on, you don't have to be here. But if you do seek out one of those connectors because you're feeling a bit like you're doing it tough, they're trained to be able to support you and make sure you get into the help that you might need. I've also brought along some pens. They've already pretty much gone, which is a good sign. They're a really terrible pen, but they do have a great number on them. So for those online, it's 1300 642 111. That's a 24-hour hotline that you can ring up and talk to a mental health social worker like myself anytime if you're having a bit of stuff going on and you just need to chat. And that could be as simple as a chat, or it could be more complex where we link you into some supports that you might need because of what's happening for you as an apprentice in the industry. So in terms of how the model actually works, there's four key pillars to the Mates program. So the first is what we call general awareness. It's where we go out to a site and we talk to people about the fact that in this industry and in energy as well, we've got an issue with suicide. Unfortunately, you're more likely to die by suicide, particularly as an apprentice, than you are an accident on site. We were just talking about accidents. They happen quite a bit, but unfortunately suicide happens even more than accidents on site. So the general awareness is about how to recognise that we do have an issue, and it's a bit of a call to action as to what to do about it. So the second part of our training is connector training. So after you've done your general awareness, you can nominate yourself to become a connector, and that's someone who links people into support when they're doing it tough. If you recognise that one of your mates isn't himself, there's a bit going on for him, and you're a bit worried about it, you can actually get the skills to say, mate, I think we need to get some help for you. There's something going on. Let's go together and get you into the appropriate supports that you might need so that you get back on your feet. The third one is Mates Assist, which is applied suicide intervention skills training. That's world's best practice in suicide first aid. So if you've asked the question and your mate says, yeah, I'm thinking about suicide and I've got a plan, it teaches you how to actually keep them safe. Not forever, but for a short period of time to get them into the supports that they need. It's a contracting type relationship and it goes for 2 days, that piece of training. And then the fourth piece is what we call Mates Respond. It's pretty new, but it's teaching connectors what to do after there has been an accident on site or if a peer in the work group has died by suicide. Because that can be a really difficult thing for a group of workers to get through together, and it gives you the skills to understand how to look out for signs and concerns if people are struggling, but also what is pretty common and normal. If you go through a really traumatic incident at work, do you think you get up the next day and go, all right, set for work again, let's go? Of course you don't. And that course teaches you how to get through that difficult period and to support people when that's happened. So this program's been going for about 17 years. And over those 17 years, we've trained a lot of connectors, we've done a lot of general awareness, we've got a lot of assist people in the industry. But throughout those 17 years, we knew there was something we really need to do with apprentices, because time and time again, what we were hearing from industry is that it was young people who were really doing it tough. It was the young ones coming up and through who weren't necessarily supported, and more often than not were having a really difficult time. So in 2019, we commissioned some research, and it was a project called Speak Up, Be Heard. So we surveyed about 2,000 apprentices in the industry to see what was happening for them. What was their experience? How are they going? What was their experience of suicide? And it was we came up with some pretty concerning outcomes. Now, by and large, everyone in the industry was doing okay. About 70% of the industry were having a good time. They had a good relationship with their supervisor, they enjoyed their trade, they enjoyed work. But unfortunately, what we found from that survey is about 30% were having a really, really rough time. Really, really rough. We had about 27 experiencing bullying and 20% on the extreme end of bullying, where it was really impacting their quality of life and their experience at work. We found that 30% had thoughts of suicide in the last 6 months. So we've got about, I've tried to do the maths, it's not my strong point, we've got about 50 people in here, that's about 15 with thoughts of suicide in the last 6 months. What this doesn't show is that when we looked at women in the industry's experience, particularly for apprentices, it was actually 50%. So 50% of those women had thoughts of suicide in the past 6 months. Nearly 30% had a really poor quality of life. So not only were there issues of suicide and thoughts of suicide, but their life was really, really, really tough. And 13% had what we would consider really distressing levels of mental health, where they're really in a bad way and probably would need some clinical support. Now, all of this sounds really depressing, right? Doesn't sound great. But there is something we can do about it. So we developed a program. I'm going to go back now. Can I do two things at once? I can. We developed a program called Mates Apprentice Resilience. And my colleague couldn't be here today, Josh, but he actually facilitates that with apprentices out in the industry. Now, when we say the word resilience, it's a bit of a dirty word in the profession I'm in social work. And the reason it is because if you're working in a really rough, tough environment, is it you that's got the issue or is it the industry? We can't make someone resilient if it's the industry that's causing them mental health challenges. But what we can do is give people the understanding and the knowledge around some of those things that make the industry tough. So what we were able to develop from that survey of 2,000 workers were some really common themes that came up for apprentices and young people in the industry. The first was long working hours and a difficult relationship with your supervisor. What do you do on those two fronts? You say, oh, mate, it's been a big day, 12 hours, you're only supposed to be here for 8, so I'm just going to take off now. Of course you can't as an apprentice. That's a really difficult conversation to have with your direct supervisor. So that's one of the things we go through in the Apprentice Resilience Program, how to have those conversations, how to build the confidence to be able to actually talk to your supervisor about that. The other big one is relationships and relationship breakdown. We know that one of the biggest issues at Mates when people call up in distress is a breakdown of relationships. Not just with your girlfriend or your partner, but with family, with friends. It can be a really, really distressing time. So in that training, we also work through what to actually do, how to get support, how to get back on your feet if that scenario happens for you as well. So this training goes for about 4.5 hours. It's free. We're happy to come out to your work site. We'd like to do it with at least about 6 apprentices in one go. And we really encourage you to reach out and participate in that because it can give you some really good skills in what to know about some of those causal factors that might make your mental health deteriorate over time, but also what to do about it. In tandem, which I haven't included today, is we train supervisors as well. Keith was talking about some of the technical stuff that you need from a supervisor. You need that constant support to be able to do your trade. You also need emotional support. You also need to have someone who's got your back if you are going through a relationship breakdown, if you are struggling with drugs and alcohol, if, you are having a really rough time and you're being bullied in the work environment, your supervisor actually now, under Queensland legislation, has an obligation to provide that support to you. There's this thing called the Psychosocial Code of Practice. They're supposed to make the work environment safe and emotionally safe for you. So we also provide that training to the industry, so it's not just apprentices that are learning about some of the things that might come up for them over the course of their trade, but it's also about the supervisor understanding that there are some things that happen for young people that they need to have some skills in their back pocket to work through and support people throughout their journey in the trade. I wanted to leave you on some really positive news. So Mates has been around for about 17 years now, and when we first started, the rates of suicide in the building and construction industry were about 20% higher than the general population. So if you're a bloke in the industry, you're about 20% higher chance of dying by suicide than any other person working in a different industry. What we now know, and the most recent research has shown us, is that that's gone down by about 10%. And that's not because of Mates, that's not because of me standing up here, it's because of the industry. It's people like Keith, who's been a connector from almost the start, I think, advocating for his mates, linking people into support when they need it, and making sure that not only are we supporting people's technical skills in the trade, but we're also supporting their long-term mental health. And by doing that together and collectively getting on top of these issues, we can actually bring those rates down and make sure people get home safe from work each day. So thank you for having me.
Thanks, Nick. Speak Up, Be Heard. He made some very relevant points, particularly with regard to apprentices and having those prickly conversations and how to deal with it. I think it's a great initiative, and Mates is doing a great job. So pass on our congratulations to the team. We really appreciate what they do. In a lot of industries in helping apprentices and their supervisors. If you've got a question for Nick that you'd like asked, don't forget use the chat box, and we'll get to those questions at the end of our speakers. And I'd encourage anyone here in our audience live at Acacia Ridge TAFE, bank it and ask it at the end of our session. The last of our speakers gets to bring us home, and I'd now like to welcome Veronica Maury. Veronica is a training and safety consultant and has extensive experience in training and safety in the electrical industry, a diploma of electrical engineering, a Bachelor of Business Management. She has been a licensed electrical fitter mechanic and has been a licensed since 1982. Surely that's a long time now. A wealth of experience. Veronica was also, you've got a bit of history here. I have to embarrass you a little bit in front of our audience. The first female to hold an electrical worker licence in New South Wales and Queensland, as well as the first female to hold an electrical contractor licence in Queensland. So no one can take that away from you, Veronica. Veronica has also been the technical expert of the Electrical Licensing Committee since 2008. Please welcome Veronica.
Here we go, good. Okay, thank you. Down a bit, I'm shorter. Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to see everybody here in the auditorium this morning, and welcome to everybody online. We just heard a bit about me, and sometimes I'm a little bit uncomfortable being in the limelight talking about me, but I'm comfortable talking about certain things I'm really committed to, and that's electrical safety in our industry. As you've heard, I am an electrician. I'm a licensed electrical fitter mechanic. I have been since, 1981 as a matter of fact. I'm very proud to be an electrician, and I am extremely proud to be a licensed electrical fitter mechanic. It's been a long time, but every time I renew, here's my licence, guys, I keep it in my wallet. Thanks to Keith reminding me to keep it in my wallet. Thanks, Keith. Every time I renew my electrical fitter mechanic licence, I know that I'm accepting my electrical safety obligations under our Electrical Safety Act and regulations. And there's two key things I know I'm accepting every time. Number one is I'm accepting my responsibility to ensure the way that I perform electrical work is electrically safe. And the second thing, and that first one is protecting me and all the workers I'm working with. The second really important one that I'm highly conscious of is that I'm accepting my responsibility as an electrical worker to ensure the work that I perform is electrically safe. That ensures that I inspect it and know how to do that to make sure it's electrically safe for my customers, for the community. So when I walk away from a job, I've done it, I know it's safe, and I can go to sleep that night feeling comfortable. I'm not going to wake up wondering, oh, did I do this? I've made sure I've done it. And I'll tell you why I'm committed to that. I did my trade training just like you guys and you girls out there. I did my trade time many years ago, just like you, the 4 years, the hard yards. And in those days we concentrated on learning about the wiring rules, as we must, and the principles underlying that. But you know, there wasn't a big emphasis on safety in the workplace and electrical safety in the workplace. So, in my very early time of training, I was working with the electrician. The electrician and I had our own business there. I was indentured, or I was trained in my own business. But we were doing an install on a big metal shed, corrugated iron shed, doing some adds and alts to it. The electrician was at the switchboard finalising the connections there and energising, and I was required to go and do polarity testing on all the GPOs. I used the tools that were typically what we used in those days, and if you're in the older age group like me, you'll know exactly what I'm going to say. I was using a series test lamp, test equipment to do that. And they weren't that safe in those days, let alone you shouldn't be using them now. But I was doing polarity test on all the GPOs in there. It was a rainy day, metal shed, there's rubbish everywhere, there was corrugated iron on the ground near where I was working. I wasn't thinking about the safety aspect of things. I was just thinking, I've got to test this. And as I went to test this, I became part of the circuit. It was one hell of a shock for me in two ways. First, that I got the shock and I could not let go. Fortunately for me, there was another electrician, or another worker on the site there who realised what was happening because I'm shaking and go, "Ugh." And he yelled out to the electrician to turn the power off. And I'm here today because somebody saw what happened to me. And I now know how important it is to follow safe systems of work, to know how to test and to know how to test the right way and to follow a right, safe way of doing it. So that's what I'm going to talk about today, how important it is to know what you're doing, and to know what you're doing and to do it safely. You need to be able to speak up. It's okay to speak up because that's how we learn and that's how we get it right. Because speaking up ensures your safety at work. Your safety and your well-being at work is really important. It's important to you and it's important to us in the industry. So, I'm going to share something else with you that I know. I'm going to ask what type of electrician you want to be. I'm going to put electricians into two categories based upon some of my knowledge and experience over the years. It was mentioned that I am a member of the Electrical Licence Committee, and we have that disciplinary function on that committee. So we see the reports coming in, and we know what's going on in the industry. And I know there are far too many electrical apprentices on the job getting electric shock or getting these flash burns due to high arc fault currents on the work they're doing because they've made a mistake. So I'm going to put two categories out there for you to think about. The very first type of electrician I call dopey electrician, and I'm calling this out as dopey because it's a technical term, and that technical term was introduced to me by one of my mates out there, right down the back of the room. You've heard him talk already this morning, so you know the talk. So we've got dopey electrician and we've got the smart electrician. So let's talk about what a dopey electrician is all about. Okay. What sort of things would a dopey electrician be doing on the job? Now, I'm going to try to make sure the language I use right now is inclusive because, you know, I've been a female in this industry for a very long time and I hear all the time about he, electricians, and they're all males. Yeah, a lot of them are. But I know very well, looking around this room, I can clearly identify for you 6 female electricians, licensed electricians sitting in this room, and I'm not too sure how many apprentices there are that are female. So electricians are both male and female. It's gender neutral, and I'm going to attempt to use those terms because I wish to put it out there and challenge all of you to take the gender out of the term electricians and make it inclusive. So the very first thing, and pull me up if you hear me use a gender term because I try not to. However, I'm full of faults and failings in life as well. So the very first thing about this dopey is either they don't, when they go to a job, they don't take 5, they don't do a risk assessment, or they don't know how to do a risk assessment very well. So they're not really aware of electrical hazards on the job. Sometimes it's what they don't know as opposed to not really caring. It's more about what you don't know, remember that. So it's important to know this. So if they don't know what electrical hazards are, I've got to fill out a risk assessment, I'll tick and flick, electric shock, part of the risk, but not really understanding that. So if they don't understand the electrical hazards on the job, they're not going to have the concept of how do we control those hazards to make it safe on the job. So they don't understand the concept of how do I then have a safe system of work to ensure the safety of how I do my work and how everyone around me does this work. So they're putting themselves at a higher risk of getting an electric shock or flash burns as a consequence. Dopey electricians have a tendency to cut corners on the job. They do work that doesn't necessarily comply with the wiring rules, as we're meant to do. Possibly they don't isolate the work correctly. Either they don't isolate. I heard somebody say he knew, Mark, new electrician working with him who used to work live. Well, we don't work live. Our legislation says we don't work live, doesn't it? So we don't work live. So yes, we learn to isolate, and there's set standards for industry standards for how you do that. Dopey doesn't necessarily do that, doesn't make sure everyone working with that electrician knows how to do that as well, doesn't make sure things are locked out, and the apprentices are included in that whole process of lockout. So they don't necessarily follow correct procedures for isolation. The next thing a dopey electrician may or may not do is, at the end of the day when they've done the job, they have the attitude of, should be right, I've done this 101 times before, I know what I'm going to do, I know how to do it, I don't have to test because I always get it right. You know, your legislation says you have to inspect and test your work. You must do that. It keeps you safe and it keeps your customers safe. So it's important to do that. So the dopey electrician doesn't make sure the electrical installation and equipment is electrically safe, so that what the consequence is, they are putting their customer at risk of an electric shock, or the equipment in that installation could be damaged. That's my observation of experience over the years of what a dopey electrician may possibly do. However, let's look at what a smart electrician is. And there's plenty of those out there, thank God. A smart electrician takes 5 before every job. The intention being they plan their job, they plan to work safe, and they plan to make sure everyone working with them, tradespeople and apprentices, also take that 5 with them, understand the risks and the electrical hazards and how to control them. They talk about a safe system of work, and they make sure everybody knows what the job is, how to do it, and they all follow a safe system of work. Smart electricians make sure everyone has the correct PPE for the job and they all wear it. Smart electricians also know they have to test for dead before they touch electrical circuits and equipment because of the consequences if we don't. We don't trust somebody else is isolated, we test before we touch. The next thing a smart electrician does is follows electrical installation requirements of the wiring rules. Okay, don't cut corners of it. Part of what you're doing here as you're in training off the job is learning what the wiring rules are. They're the safety standards of everything that we do to make sure we do works to the safety requirements. So make sure you know those wiring rules and you apply them. The very final thing a smart electrician does is they know how to do this and they do it. They inspect and test their work every time to ensure it complies with the wiring rules, it is electrically safe, and they are sure that they have protected their workers on site, and critically, they are sure they are not putting their customer at risk. Okay? Because I need to let you know that your customer and the general community trust us as licensed electrical workers and future licensed electrical workers. They trust us that we do inspect and test. So smart electricians do that every time. They'll have a checklist to make sure they've done all the correct tests. I'll try to move this one quickly because Mark's most probably left us a little bit behind. Nick was fantastic. What a great morning, hey? However, I'm challenging you and I'm asking you, what sort of electrician are you going to be? Whoops, where'd I put it this time? What sort of electrician are you going to be when you get one of these things, this lovely little blue card? Used to have a gold one too, but not anymore. I don't need it anymore. After my experiences in the trade, I have always planned to be the smart electrician. You do that too. In that process, as you are learning, and even when you are a licensed electrician, you'll encounter situations you're not familiar with. Make sure you ask, speak up. Learn as much as you can so that you can be that safe electrician as well. So that you can ensure, just like I try to, is that the way that you perform your electrical work is electrically safe for you and all your other mates working with you. Making sure that the work that you do is to the requirements, installation requirements of the wiring rules. They're there for a sound purpose. Make sure you understand the earthing system, the MEN system, how to install it, how to test it. Fully aware you understand how it operates, what's the purpose of it. So that critical part of testing it is understanding all of that. And finally, you ensure that you do know how to inspect and test, and you do it every time. Unfortunately, with my experiences in the industry, I don't have a high level of confidence that electrical apprentices are coming out of their trade time and getting a licence, that they are confident and understanding of the inspection and testing procedures that we are required to follow. Make sure you know how to do that. There's good testing courses out there. Do it. Go and do one of those courses before your capstone assessment to make sure you know how to do it. Finally, finally put this one up. I'm proud that we finally in our industry have a guide for electrical apprentices. There's lots of great information in here that's been gathered through experts within our industry in Queensland. Get a copy of it, follow it. Great stuff in there. That way, I have a higher level of confidence that all of you will end up being smart electricians when you come out and get your licence. Thank you everyone for being here today.
Thank you, Veronica. Time on the wing. Let's get the panel up. If you've got a question for Veronica or any of our panel members, use it when you're online in the chat box. We'll get to as many as we can in the next few minutes. Just a take-home message from you, the one that really stands out to me is be proud of the profession that you've chosen and be proud of the work standards that you are going to commit to. That once you get that blue card, it's not just a blue card or a gold card that you stick in your wallet and you leave it there and forget about it. It's like an agreement that you're going to do your best and of the highest standard. I love that message that you've left us with, Veronica. So, Keith, if you want to jump up, Nick, the other two, Mark, Jane, come on up on the panel. I do see that we have a couple of questions that have come from online. Is there anyone with a burning question in our audience? Please wait till we get a microphone over to you. I've got a microphone there for Nick. You don't have to turn these on, or they're all good to go. Well, let's go to an online question first. This one's for you, Keith. What is a common factor that you see in those attending the licensing committee? A common factor.
There's actually two of these. The first one is where someone is receiving shocks or tingles in the home or in a premises, and that's because failure to do a test or failure to do an adequate test. And then the other one is where an apprentice is receiving electric shock. And as Veronica mentioned before, about when you talk about the performance of electrical work is not electrically safe, there's another ground there where a person who performs or supervises electrical work and where the performance or the supervision of work, the person or property is not electrically safe. So if an apprentice receives electric shock and they get referred to us, it's the electrical licence holders fail to actually supervise that apprentice adequately.
I'll follow that up with Mark or Jane. We must reiterate, and we went through this last week, there is no such thing as a safe shock. Can you just expand on that for us, Mark?
We've actually got a really good video if you go to worksafe.qld.gov.au, and I think it's Dr. Andrew, his name? Yeah, he's got a great video about there's no such thing as a safe shock. There's also a really good Australian standard called that no one here will know about because some inspectors don't know about this one. It's the effects of current on the human body, and it goes into the resistance of the body and just the level of, even for perception, is 5 milliamps. So that's when we feel it. So when we touch something and we go, did I just feel a tingle? That's 5 milliamps. So that's the level. When it goes over 5 milliamps, that's nothing. How much does a fridge draw or an air conditioner that's 3 amps, 4 amps? That'll kill you multiple times over. So yeah, that's, if you can look at that standard and watch that video, it certainly provides you that information to give you a bit more perspective on it.
Nick, you certainly have touched many members of our audience. I've got a couple of questions for you. Your advice for an apprentice if they feel like they aren't getting the support they need from their boss or supervisor, and this is a prickly conversation that a lot of people don't like to have and don't know where to start.
It's a bit of self-promotion, but mates, so if you call that number, we have case managers who can guide you through that process, whether that's rehearsing the conversation, whether it's looking at a support service that can come with you, whether it's a trade union, whether it's just a friend or colleague who can help you put those things in place so that when you're actually going into that conversation, you're not going in blind, you've rehearsed. One of the biggest things we've learnt at Mates over time is that information for tradies often needs to be rehearsed. You hear something once, that's okay, but you've got to practice. So actually practicing those conversations, sounds silly, in the mirror, we found that really helps, can go a long, long way to just being prepared for what the outcome might be. Because if that conversation is a bit prickly, you're then prepared. You know that what you're going to say when the next step happens. So I guess the biggest advice would be giving one of our case managers a call so that they can guide you through that process and or link you into support services. But make sure that you practice as well, so that you're not just going in there. I know when I've had a difficult conversation, I get pretty elevated. So by practicing, you can take out some of the emotion from the conversation and make sure that it's just straight to the point, direct and outcome focused.
And don't necessarily go straight there right away when you're riled up, fired up and you're a bull at a gate. Yep. All right, this one is for you, Mark. Danielle online asks, how important is the e-profiling requirement?
Yeah, the e-profile, like for me, when I went through my time, it was 99 through to 2003, everything was logbooks. So we had to fill out a logbook and you had to really detail everything that you were doing every day. That e-profiling is really important. It's not just, I guess, hit the dots, give it to someone who doesn't really know what you're doing and make sure you get a fitter mechanic licence. It's really important because it's that record of your competency so that you actually, when you're going to go out, like Veronica said, you're going to be that smart electrician. You're going to know everything you need to know.
While you've got the microphone, Jane, you can have a question now. Following on from Nick and the question we had for Nick, what should you do if you feel like your boss or supervisor is asking you to do something you feel is wrong or unsafe? We all have that gut feeling that this is not right. We're unsure. We know we're at the bottom in the pecking order. What do you do?
Yeah, I think it can be really difficult as an apprentice as well to actually put your hand up and say, I'm not comfortable doing this. If your boss is not listening and if you work with other people or if you have somebody that you can ring, I would be saying reach out to those other people if your boss is not hearing you. And just remember that it's your life and you need to protect your life. That's, the work safe, home safe is the most important message that I can deliver. And certainly as an apprentice, I was asked to do things. I was asked to work live, which I was not comfortable with, and I did do it. And I regret making that decision now. Luckily, I'm still here. But I think that there is enough supports available to us now that if we are not comfortable to deliver that message, there are other people that can help us through.
This is for you and for Veronica, because you're both pioneering females in this industry, yes. What advice do you have for girls or women in the trade, and what is your message to young men watching today in supporting equality in the trade, and for that matter supervisors, because the world is changing? Veronica.
Okay, as you heard me say, I'm proud to be an electrician. I would like to let all women who are thinking about trades to give it a go. Many years ago I used to try a trade courses for women, and they were highly invaluable, and then we'd get them into a pre-vocational course. So give trades a go. It's a great career. Pays good money, nice work conditions. Yeah, there's some tough times in it, but it's a challenge every day. It's interesting every day. Go for it. I've had a brilliant career being an electrician, so I highly recommend the trade for women. What do you reckon, Jane?
I think, and I touched a little bit on this yesterday, it's about the right fit as well as all those other things. So if you go into a trade and you are enjoying it, you might find some aspects of it quite difficult and challenging. You just need to stick with it if you can. If it feels like the right thing for you to do, keep going with it. And again, there are lots of supports out there for young women. So there's NAWIC, which is a National Association of Women in Construction. There's obviously MATES. There is also online, there is Sparkettes, which is directed at females in the electrical industry, and all these people will be there to help you. So, yeah, give it a go.
Fantastic. We've got a question.
Can I just say,
Go.
We haven't finalised this yet. When it comes to other tradespeople and young guys, give the girls a go. They make good electricians. They make great support in the workplace too. Try to cut out that gender language that I talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Electricians are neutral. They're not male, they're not female only. So give it a go and support them. If you want to have a tradesperson who has your back and will be a good tradesperson working with you, give a girl a go.
I like the sentiment. From Kirsty online, how many apprentices can a tradesperson supervise if the guideline states they should be under direct supervision? So, Keith, is that your domain?
Well, in my view, it's one. For direct supervision, you need to be eyeballing that apprentice. You've got to make sure that apprentice is safe. We're hearing stories where we've got third and fourth year apprentices out there in the van doing work by themselves. You can't do it. The legislation doesn't provide it. You can't supervise your apprentice by remote control or osmosis. You know, when they get older in third and fourth years, you can have a bit more general supervision.
Mm-hmm.
But direct supervision, you need to be eyeballing them pretty much.
One-on-one is best. Okay. Any questions from the floor? I'm going to open it to the floor. I think we've got a pretty good audience. There's one right down the back. I think we've got a room full of smart apprentices, not dopey ones. So that's why they don't need to ask many questions.
Good morning. I'm one of the electrical teachers here at TAFE. I've got a question for second best electrician there, Mr. Commissioner. There's a lot of movement in the emerging technologies area, and a lot of jobs will be focused in that area. A couple of questions. How are we looking after apprentices who are starting to use these new technologies? And how are we assuring future jobs, possibly with our homegrown sparkies? I've heard about 456, 457 visa holders building solar farms, etc. So if we can turn that back into apprenticeship jobs, how are we looking after those guys with the emerging stuff?
Yeah, great two questions, thanks. So the first one about how do we support the apprentices. So whilst you undertake the general, it's the general apprentice training, and obviously there's a whole lot of training, whether it be apprentices or lines workers, is it a lot of apprentices are coming out of their time, completing their capstone with a high level of different skills they're learning, and actually some of you guys might have more skills than the workers you're actually working with in the trade from what you're actually learning at college. But with the Powering Skills organisation, which is reviewing our training and all our new electives, what we're doing, that's what we're going to do to set up our young apprentices for success. So when, depending where you want to go, if you still want to work in homes or washing machines and in the white goods area, if you want to go out there and doing the solar, battery and storage, the ability to pick different electives and where you're going to take your journey in the electrical industry. With respect to supporting the emerging technologies for the energy and jobs plan that we'll see, it's about how I guess your words are homegrown electricians, is that we need to have more training facilities in Queensland. We need TAFE Queensland to have more facilities, more training, and RTOs to get more training. We need more training courses so we actually upskill. And picking up what one of our colleagues says on the licensing committee, Jane Airy, who used to be in aviation, is that the aviators in the industry used to target male pilots. And a light switch happened that 50% of only targeting 50% of the population. How can we get the other 50% of women to come in the trade? So it's advocating for not only men, and there's about 4% of women in the electrical trade. How can we over the next 10 years get that up to 50% of women to learn our new trade and our skills and promote them? And how do we actually promote the trade to divide everyone in? The electrotechnology union is about 7,500 people in our trade. It's the highest trade of people want to be electricians, and rightfully so, right? It's a great trade, pays good money and some great rewards. But it's about making sure we have that renewable skills. And while we sit here today, and congratulations for everyone making the effort to be here today and online, you seem to care about the industry. But while we sit here, there's people all around the world working how we use, store and generate electricity. We're evolving. And what we learned today as a first year is going to be something that's going to be changed by the time you're a fourth year. So as a whole industry players across the board, we're just going to be mindful of what's changing in our world for the electrical industry.
Any more questions from the floor? Last chance. No? One last question. This is for you, Nick. In your opinion, what does a mentally healthy workplace look like for an apprentice in particular? And as an apprentice, how do we spot when looking at where we might want to work for?
Support and understanding are the two big, I think, things that come up for me. So being supported, whether that's in the technical attributes of your trade or whether it's in your personal life as well, which impacts the work environment. Understood, so that they understand who you are as an individual, not just as a tradesperson. Those are two really important things. What came up for mates in the evaluation of the resilience program is that, unfortunately, there was quite a common instance of abuse of power in the work environment. So not just doing unsafe work, but actually being requested to do really unusual things that were way outside of the scope of the working relationship. So anything like that, I would be getting right out of that kind of work environment, because that's just not on, and unfortunately it's quite common.
Thanks, Nick, and thank you to the audience that joined us live and to the audience here at TAFE Acacia Ridge. Thank you for joining us today. Can I get our audience here that are with us to thank our speakers, Jane, Mark, Nick, Veronica and Keith. Thanks again to everyone who joined us in person and online. I'd like to remind you that it's not too late to register for our other Electrical Safety Fortnight events. These include the Electrical Industry Safety webinar tomorrow, the Electrical Safety in the Community webinar that's happening on Friday. In week 2, we have a number of great events, including an information session for RTOs and trainers, a large-scale solar farm forum, an electrical inspectors forum, an ELC worker and contractor engagement session, a community event in Yarrabah, and an electrical entities engagement webinar. For more information, visit worksafe.qld.gov.au. Just quickly, you'll receive an email from us to complete a feedback survey about today's event. We really value your feedback. It helps us shape events like this of the future. So if you could spare just 2 minutes, we'd really appreciate you doing that survey. I'd like to say a personal thanks to our hosts, TAFE Queensland Acacia Ridge Campus. Thanks to the audience that joined us here live at the campus. And on behalf of the ESO, I'm Chris Bombolis. Work safe, home safe. See you next time.